Okay, so good afternoon, and I suggest that we start now. Welcome back to the Smarter E-Industry Days digital event. My name is Mate Heiss. I'm Director of Global Affairs at SolarPower Europe, and it's my pleasure to be the moderating of the following session. This is in fact the last session of the Smarter E Digital Conference. And this session is organized by SolarPower Europe in collaboration with GET.invest, and we will today we will speak about the Green Deal diplomacy and European instruments to support renewable energy project development in developing markets. To explore this topic, we have invited 4 distinguished speakers from the European Commission and 3 different representatives of 3 different support instruments. We will start with 4 input presentations, starting with the European Commission to get an overview of the policy context, and followed by 3 presentations from the Electrification Financing Initiative, ElectriFI, Bettervest, and GET.invest. So 3 different interesting instruments. During the presentations, and the presentations will be followed by a 45 minute panel discussion, we will explore how the EU and these 3 different instruments can help European businesses to develop projects in emerging markets, and how they do this in the spirit of the European Green Deal, the EU's strategy to become the first carbon neutral continent. Now, before inviting the speakers and introducing the speakers, let me share some housekeeping rules. So first of all, I ask all the participants to please turn off your camera and mute yourself when joining the meeting. And I would also like to already encourage you to send questions in the chat that you would like us to pick up during the panel discussion. You can just enter your question, your comment in the chat, and after the presentations, during the panel discussion, we will be monitoring those questions and picking them up. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our 4 distinguished speakers, starting with Georgios Grapsas, team leader at Unit F1 Climate Change and Sustainable Energy at DG INTPA of the European Commission. Welcome, Georgios. Jean-Denis Collin, regional manager at ElectriFI. Marilyn Hybe, co-founder and managing director of Bettervest, and Sebastian von Wolf, Head of Finance Advisory at GET.invest. So as said, the first presentation will be done by Georgios Grapsas from the European Commission. We will learn about the policy context that will set the scene for the following 3 presentations. With this, I would like to hand the word to Georgios. Georgios, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nate, and thank you for inviting the European Commission. I'm here on behalf of my head of unit, Mr. Stefano Signor, and my director, Mrs. Carla Montesi, trying to present what the EU is doing. Now I'll try to share my screen, and I'm looking at how to do this. Somehow I don't see. I have a presentation that is trying. I don't know if you can help me on this. Maybe you can share it as I have a presentation that is presenting what the EU is doing, and also some interesting results that have later come from Africa. I don't know, Mate, if you can help me with this. Yes.
If you're not able to share your screen, then indeed someone from our team could do it. We've received it by email, I think. There we go. I think here we go. The presentation. If you can put it on full screen, then yeah, Georgios, just say when you would like us to switch to the next slide.
Oh, let's start. I mean, it's really right to the spot. Thank you for helping me out on this. So, and sorry for this. So this is about the EU Sustainable Energy Cooperation with a focus on Africa. So I will try to present you some things that some of you might know, but also to go deeper in some other, also to the future, what is going on right now, but also to the future. So next slide, please. Here we see that we have three main targets. That is access to energy, renewable energy generation, together with coupled with energy efficiency and fighting climate change. And this is, of course, in many projects, all of these come together. And if it's Africa, we should not forget access to energy. One thing I want to mention here is that all of generation projects, they contribute for access to energy, especially in a continent like Africa that is deprived of energy capacity. Next slide, please. So here we see what has been done till now. It is a very quick overview of the different projects that the EU has been managing till now and implementing all over Africa. There is a wide network of EU delegations that are on the ground implementing, together with our partners that are financing institutions like EIB, KfW, partners like GIZ, AFD. And here you see that a big part is going to sub-Saharan Africa, but we're not only working in sub-Saharan Africa, and that also the part on generation, and especially, of course, it's always renewable, but especially solar generation, solar PV, represents a big part of our portfolio of projects. This is data coming from around 400 projects that have been implemented since 2014. Please, next slide. So we're working in partnership. We're working both in reforms and then investments. Thank you. Next slide. And this is what we have. Our main issue is to leverage. So we try to work in partnership and leverage other partners, like it's the case I mentioned with the financing institutions. This is our new way of working, our new policy, especially since around 2012. Myself, I've been working in energy since exactly this period of 2012, all the time in Africa, and also in the infrastructure sector. So here we see that with this leveraging factor that is increasing, it's more than 10 actually, we can achieve very significant results. And the EU as a partner is a partner that is providing a scarce resource that is the grant financing that is blended with other non-concession loans, sometimes concessional, sometimes non-concessional, but I think the grant element is very, very important. So next slide, please. Now, this is a glimpse for the future. It is something that will be announced during the the African Union EU summit that we're expecting to have. It has been delayed due to COVID. It was supposed to happen this year, but it will happen next year, hopefully. And there we have the mandate from the communication of the Commission, and also accepted by Council and Parliament, that to work towards a green energy initiative together with Africa. So this really puts the spotlight on how we want to work, and there is a lot of substance that we have put behind this. I will explain later, but it's good to have something that is encompassing, like an umbrella, all that we're trying to do together. Thank you. Next slide. We should not forget that we have a very important instruments that prepare the ground, and this is one of our own. It's a technical assistance facility. It is active since 2013. I have personally worked on this hands-on myself, and together with other instruments like GET.invest, that today we are together, but also other TA facilities that exist, also from financiers. We're trying to have all this, what we call pipeline development. Of course, you're all familiar with this. Next slide. Thank you. And this is just to set the scene on the differentiation between the TA that I just talked about, but also the blending. I also talked about this, but the element of guarantees. And this will be in the next slide. Thank you. This is about the differentiation of preparing the business environment that is also the part of what we call the European Investment Plan. So thank you. Next slide. Now, this is the European Investment Plan, and today its main instrument, the European Fund for Sustainable Development, has been in place since 2016. And we see here the leverage factor of having a big amount of 4.6 billion in public funds for blending and guarantees to be leveraging 10 times this amount. This is not, of course, not only energy. It's SME financing, it can be transport, it can be anything, but energy is a preferable part, a part that is really moving on and very, very well. Thank you. Next slide. So here we see what has happened till now in guarantees. So this is a bit of our own jargon. EFSD is the European Funds for Sustainable Development that is housing this new instrument of guarantees. It has taken a lot of time to prepare this. I will show this in the next 2 slides. And at the moment, we have 370 million signed for it. Next slide, please. So this is the first guarantee that we can discuss about, and also we can discuss in the panel. This is the European Guarantee for Renewable Energy. It's jointly proposed by 4 European financiers like EIB, KfW, CDB, and AFD. It's targeting sub-Saharan Africa, and it consists of different instruments covering different needs. We'll go a bit more into detail. Thank you. Next slide. And this is maybe a slide that is in the wrong place, but we have, of course, our instruments that are also doing leveraging. Today we have with us ElectriFI and Climate Investor 1, Africa Renewable Energy Scale-up Facility that is coming from AFD, Facility for Energy Inclusion that is with African Development Bank, and these are all instruments that are trying to do exactly this leveraging, and these specific instruments are targeting the private sector. Thank you. Next slide. Now here we have the right slide, which is about how this 352 million of the guarantees are split in the different instruments, and you can see the instrument of EGRE, which is the first one, and also the instrument of RLSF, which is a guarantee facility for that when we have a problem with payment from off-takers, and this is and also we have the boosting renewable energy by BRD that is working in the neighborhood area. So this is what we have now, and the next slide I will show you what is going to happen. The next slide, please. So the next phase of guarantees, and this is where I will stop for a while, is that we have 2 windows. One is if you see number 2, there will be a window of sovereign investment by EIB that was targeting, for example, big public projects, and there is a so-called open architecture window for other development financing institutions, where we will have suitable proposals coming from them to solve certain problems or to advance certain policies. And this is what will be happening also during the next months. We'll have a dialogue with the financing institutions to see what are the next instruments and how to shape them together so that they meet the real needs. You can see the figures here, and of course this is all in the regulation that has been accepted, and all of this will come live, and these instruments will start being implemented. Thank you. Next slide. I'm now moving to a totally different area. This is about something that is completely different. It's something that is the work we're doing with the African Union Commission and now the NEPAD. And this is important for generation capacity and renewable energy because, and I will not stay more than 2-3 minutes here, because the infrastructure that has to be there is very important so that generation capacity can be transmitted and reach the customers. So this is the new vision of the African Union Commission together with NEPAD. In this, we're working very, very closely with these 2 African institutions. We are trying to let them make their own choices, but helping them with technical assistance and the know-how that is coming from Europe. And the results are there because we have the voting since June 3rd of the Africa Single Electricity Market. and going forward with the Africa, with the Continental Master Plan. What I will show you very quickly, and I will ask you to go very quickly with the slides, just 5 seconds a slide, is this. Here we can see the comparison of different outlooks for Africa, and we can see the role of solar, of hydro, and other technologies. Because what the technical assistance facility has done is has compared all the different outlooks. But all the outlooks, and this is my point, are showing that we have a big 4 to 5 increase in the PV capacity. We are seeing 300 gigawatts of PV being installed in the Africa case scenario for till 2030. So this is not so new to you, but I'm just saying that this is being confirmed by the different outlooks. Now, of course, in the panel, we will discuss what are the problems, what are the bottlenecks. And this is the slide that you see. It's, let's say, the 3 capacities, but also they have been analyzed also by Power Pool, West Africa, South Africa, East Africa. And there are some interesting insights. And this study, which is, I'm stressing it, it's only a comparison. There's no real new data there. Will be soon published, but I'm giving you a glimpse here of this. And this is just showing us the way that to move forward and to really go on in actually having this much needed generation capacity. I would just ask you to go quickly through the slides. And yes, these are the different power pools. Of course, you see the increase till 2030. The recommendation here is regional integration. We're working a lot on this. And in the next 2 slides, you will see the network. And this is the existing network. And then the next one, which is my last slide, is showing the PIDA vision, the vision of the program for infrastructure development in Africa, that is showing, let's say, a preliminary vision of the Continental Master Plan. I think this is important so that we can have a real market there. And this is an aspect that we can discuss in the next hour. So from my side, sorry for being quick, and I'm here to stay and to discuss with you all these elements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgios, and very interesting to see what the European Commission and DG INTPA is already doing. Also, thanks for showing us or listing the existing instruments and also showing what is planned, in particular the guarantee facilities. I think we're all looking forward to seeing those very much. So with the next presentation from Jean-Denis Collin from ElectriFI, we will learn a bit more about one specific instrument, ElectriFI, and how project developers can benefit from this instrument. Jean-Denis, over to you.
Thank you, Mate. Hi, everybody. So indeed, I will introduce ElectriFI. So maybe if you can start with the presentation. Yeah. So next slide, please. Yeah. So ElectriFI. So ElectriFI is a joint initiative between the European DFIs, so the 15 European DFIs, and the European Union. It has been set up in early 2016, just after the COP21. So it is managed by the management company of the 15 European DFIs. Yeah, maybe you can go to the slide about yeah, that one. Thank you. So yeah, as I said, so common initiative between the DFIs and the European Union. So set up in 2016, and with it has been set up by the European Union and the 15 DFIs with the purpose to fund or to fill the funding gap for projects that are too small or too risky for the traditional DFIs. So with a strong focus on sub-Saharan Africa and a strong focus on off-grid electricity. So meaning rural electrification, but also providing clean and affordable electricity to commercial and industrial customers, also including in urban and peri-urban areas. Next slide, please. So EDFI Management Company is managing or has been managing ElectriFI since 2016, but it is also managing other facilities, including AgriFi, which is a bit the sister fund of ElectriFI, but for agribusiness, And EDFI management company is also managing some risk sharing and co-financing facilities, so more of a guarantee nature. So there is the TNC guarantee, transfer and convertibility risks, and there are some co-financing facilities which are EFP and ICCF. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah, so with a focus on ElectriFI, so ElectriFI, we currently have 253 million euro under management, of which about 80 million has been already invested. There are three main facilities. So there is the global facility with a bit more than 100 million, which is available for many different countries on all the continents. And then we have two country windows facilities, so that are country specific. So the first facility has been raised in 2018 with 5 countries. So Benin, one region which is the Pacific region, Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Zambia. And more recently, we have contracted a second facility for Kenya, Uganda, Eswatini, and Burundi. So our funding is mostly exclusively coming from the European Union. So the country windows are fully funded by the European Union. And the global facility has contributions alongside the European Union contributions from Pro-Africa, government of Italy, and government of Sweden. Next slide, please. So what makes ElectriFI different than the other instruments? First, it is an impact-first facility. So more than 50% of our portfolio is invested in low-income countries. Second, ElectriFI is providing highly catalytic investments. So we are, and as Giorgio mentioned, leverage is important, is key, and we are leveraging a lot of additional funding. So with the 80 million invested so far, we have leveraged an additional about 280 million euro from other financiers and funders. Fit for purpose and scalable. I think this is a real key differentiator from other instruments. We offer very flexible products that really meet the company needs and the sector's needs. So we can invest in equity, in straight equity. We can also invest in mezzanine or junior-like debt. And we can also provide senior debt. So our mandate is really to be additional. So on a case-by-case basis, we assess where we would be the more additional and the more catalytic. And this is allowed by this flexibility and by the fact that we can do very different instruments. Additional and collaborative in the sense that we work a lot with other financiers, and they can be impact funds, they can be crowdfunding platform, and they can also be commercial funds or DFIs. We are increasingly often working with DFIs. What we see is that in many cases we are investing at a quite early stage. And DFIs are co-investing later at a subsequent capital raise, and that's something we are witnessing increasingly often. So far, 41% of our investments have been co-investment with DFIs. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is a few examples of past investments. I think this is interesting because it highlights the diversity of our interventions. We have, for instance, we have been a founding investor in SolarPower Africa, which is a company providing CNI solutions, so mostly rooftop solar, to commercial and industrial customers mostly in Eastern and Southern Africa. We have invested in Redavia, so a junior debt in an asset company for rooftop PV installations, mostly in Ghana, but now Redavia is expanding in Eastern Africa. We have invested convertible debt in Virunga Power, which is a developer of small hydro project, mostly in Eastern Africa. Empower New Energy, which is also a CNI company, but structured as a fund. Arnergy is also a very interesting investment. We have done it with the Nigeria country window. It's a company, it's more a technology company actually, developing very large systems, a standalone system, including electricity generation, so PV panels and storage, remotely controlled. So as a kind of SHS, but of a size of 5 kilowatt on average. So the purpose of this project is to decommission a diesel generator and to replace them with a solar power. So very interesting technology, fully developed in Nigeria by Nigerian people and assembled in Nigeria as well. We have also invested in Joule Africa. There it's for quite a big dam in Sierra Leone. So it also shows how diverse our interventions are. So there we have provided development capital. Finally, PowerGen, a quite well-known developer of mini grids and also CNI solutions in sub-Saharan Africa, and Azuri, which is a distributor of SHS. So again, it shows how the kind of business we can support with various instruments. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, eligibility criteria and offerings. So yeah, eligibility criteria, it's about renewable energy. So we are technology agnostic. We must say that most of our investments and financing so far have been with PV, but we can also look at other technologies. So business model, we essentially support CNI, mini grids, small to mid-scale IPPs, as well as SHS. Commercially viable, we support only private initiatives, but that they should be able to show that they are commercially viable under reasonable assumptions. So it needs to be a proven path to profitability. ESG standards, of course, we are following the highest standards in terms of environment, social, and governance. So we mostly rely on the IFC performance standards as well as other norms. Track record is also a key. And the offering, so what we offer, so as I said, various financing instruments. Ticket size is between 500,000 and 10 million per investment, and we can finance up to 50% of the funding round. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a quick overview of our portfolio. So as I said, so far we have invested a bit less than 80 million euro. SHS represent about 45% of our portfolio, but the rest 55%. So CNI and captive power plants about 20%, IPP is 10%, and mini grids 10%. And then we have others, which are mostly intermediate investments. So the next chart is interesting. It shows next chart. Now it shows that as I said, we are very catalytic with a very high leverage. Meaning that, and it is showed by this chart. So senior debt is only about less than 30% of all of our investments done so far, meaning that for about 70% we have invested in quite high risk catalytic capital like equity or quasi-equity or junior debt. And breakdown by region, we see that indeed we have a strong focus on sub-Saharan Africa with more than 65%. Next slide, please.
1 minute, please, Jean-Denis. It's time to wrap up soon. 1 minute left, please.
Okay.
If not, you don't mind.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, this is the last slide. So it's about our targets. So fully in line with the three big bets that George just mentioned about access, generation, and CO2. We also tracking the same kind of indicators. So access. So we are tracking the number of beneficiaries. So again, this is a target. It is not what we have achieved so far, but what we aim to achieve. So generation capacity, we also tracking generated capacity, job creation, CO2 avoided, and we also tracking the 2x challenge. Yeah, so that's it about ElectriFI. So I hope it gives you a good overview of what we do. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much, Jean-Denis. Very good overview, and also very interesting to know a bit more about your approach. Also the fact that you are being complementary with other types of instruments, such as crowdfunding platforms or crowdfunding instruments. That's what you said. And actually, our next presenter is Marilyn Hybe from Bettervest, which is a crowdfunding platform. A different approach, not a public instrument, but very keen to learn about it and how we can leverage Bettervest and crowdfunding money to finance projects in emerging markets. Marilyn, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, then first slide, please. Yeah, and the next one directly. First of all, so Bettervest, we have been founded end of 2012, and at end of 2013, we financed our first project. And what is the markets we are looking now to? So we're still financing projects in Germany, mostly more innovative technologies, but our second focus market, or better say even our focus market, is Africa, and they're East Africa. So what are we focusing on, and why do we do that? We are focusing on small and medium-sized companies that have not so much offers for financing, and because they are in a high country risk or the technology is risky as we finance companies in Germany. And what are the challenges of those companies? Mostly the amount that they want to lend is so small that the due diligence for financiers is much too difficult, or it costs too much. The national banking system failures. So for example, the project that we financed in Nigeria, it was at a time where even local banks could not finance anymore. And also currency risk is quite high. So, and then on the other side for investors, the risk to invest in those countries or in those companies is higher than, for example, to just invest into a photovoltaic plant in Germany. And therefore, we see that for institutionals, it's still a risk to finance those projects, especially when it's smaller projects. And so we see a big chance for crowdfunding because the crowd has other criteria why they finance such a project. Yeah, next slide. And before I speak about the crowd, I just want to explain how it works. So first of all, anybody who has a project or project owner comes to us and we look at the project, we check what is the impact of the project and what are the risks. And if we think this is feasible for our crowd, we allow this project owner to put the project on the platform. We support the project owner with everything, with marketing, with contracts and everything. That's our service. But finally, the project owner is the emittent. And we work together with a financing institution, and so there is a trustee account, so the money from the crowd will be paid on the trustee account and then later paid on into the project. We can finance all kinds of energy projects that anyhow have a CO2 saving, and we start already with 100,000 euro, and our limit so far is 2.5 million. It's only a limit because we are limited with the crowd, not a legal limit. And then the project will be structured like this, that it has to be paid back in a certain time. We finance maximum up to 10 years and minimum 1 year. And then the payback is whether annually, or we can even have a grace period or a final repayment and then just every year the interest rate has to be paid. And as mentioned, there is a trustee account in the middle who takes care that the money is paid in by the crowd, paid out to the project owner, and in the same way the money goes back from the project owner to the trustee and then back to the crowd. We are the only crowdfunding platform in Germany that allows investors to invest from 50 euro on, and we are limited to 25,000 euro per investment. That's very fastly the model, how it works. And Bettervest, how do we survive? So from the money that we fund, we get a certain fee, a one-time fee from the money we fund, but also a yearly fee for the service we do, because project owners have nothing to do. So finally, they just pay the money once a year, and then the rest means the payout, tax documents, the whole communication with investors when they change address, bank, whatever, runs via our platform, and so the project owner has no work with this. Yeah, next slide, please. And I also wanted to show in this presentation the opinion of the investors, because I think that's very important to see what private people think about investments in Africa. And so already in June 2019, we did a big survey and wanted to find out what is the motivation of our crowd. Under which conditions would they even invest more? And we were very happy to see that most of our investors really invest because they want to have a positive impact, especially an ecological impact, so it's 70%, but also a social impact of 42%. But nevertheless, they would double their investment. 75% would double their investment if there would be any kind of security or bond to support them, in case something goes wrong. And through a first loss guarantee, 50% of the investors would invest more. Clearly, we have to say that I assume that not every investor knew what is a first loss guarantee, so we don't know how exact this number is. And then in December 2020, we also did a survey just to people that registered at our platform but never invested, just to find out what we have to change so they invest. And even there, we had many possibilities what they could say. But what we could definitely say, one of the biggest important things for them was that the duration is shorter. So 33% said we need a shorter duration of the loan, and 30% said that the projects need more security. And that showed us very deeply. The people want to invest in Africa, but still they are scared. Next slide. As I assume that many of the audience today will be project owners that would like to get a funding of Bettervest or one of the other speakers here, I just wanted to bring together what are the criteria for funding with Bettervest. So first of all, what we offer is subordinated loans, mezzanine and bonds, so all kind of loans. And we do annuity payment or a payment at the end, so just in the first year's interest rate. Loan term can be 1 to 10 years. The best is 1 to 5 years because the crowd is scared to do longer terms. And the interest rate is between 3.5 and 12% and depends on the risk. We don't say to the project owner what the interest rate should be to the crowd, but if the offer is too low, we would not finance it. So, but mostly the projects range between 6.5 and 7%. We do project finance. We do refinance of projects. We do no startup or prototypes. The technologies we finance are all kind of technologies that anyhow save CO2. And we are one of the few crowdfunding platforms that feel comfortable also really with all kind of technologies, means energy efficiency, because this is where we come from. We started with energy efficiency in Germany, but also other kind of technologies that anyhow save resources because we have a good technical team and we are partnering with GIZ, so we feel comfortable that we can check the technology. But we would never finance something that has not an environmental or a social impact, and the projects have also to follow our ethical rules. So if, for example, somebody comes to us and wants to have a photovoltaic plant on a slaughtery, we would say no, because that would not follow the ethical rules, because the crowd is very critical, and also we want really to make the world a better place and have also to look at these aspects. So now to the location, where do we finance? Finally, where the project is, we don't care to say so. Clearly, we have our focus markets, which is East Africa, also Ghana, and Germany. But if it's a good company with lots of experience, then we are open. From legal point of view, the borrowing company must be located in Germany, Austria, Singapore, and Kenya, because for these markets we have proper contracts. Nevertheless, what we offer nowadays is that project owners that are interested in just sitting in another country can create an SPV with us. So we offer a service together with a service partner that there will be a financing a company just created in Germany for low cost. The loan size. So as mentioned already, we start already with 100,000 and the maximum that we feel comfortable with is 2.5 million. The best is between 500,000 and 1.5 million. As we speak now about this point, I wanted perhaps to share my screen and just to show what we do currently, but I think I can also talk about it. Last year, Corona was really difficult for all crowdfunding platforms because private people stopped financing. And so we had the idea to come closer together with our sisters and brothers in Europe and to work together much closer. So what we started is to ask every crowdfunding platform what kind of projects they like to fund. And so now we are quite strong in financing project because we work together with other platforms. Means if a project owner comes to us and says, I want to fund 2.5 million, we feel comfortable because it's not just Bettervest and later financing it. We are just a platform who does the due diligence, who does all the marketing material, but we are co-funding with other platforms. So we have around about 10 platforms where we are that we are talking to. So when you will look later at our platform, you will see the projects. There are different colors for different co-funders. So 3 of our 4 projects actually at the platform are co-funded also by other crowdfunding platforms. And this goes on like this. It will be like this now for all projects in the future, I guess.
Marilyn,
so,
one minute left, please.
Oh my God. Yeah, so credit rating, just to talk about this, very important. And we would never finance a startup company. So we want to have companies that have experience, that have good references, and that they know what they do. So at least they should be operational for 3 years. And I just show you the timeline because I have to say crowdfunding is a very fast thing. So within 1 month, we have a LOI. Within the next month, we have done our due diligence, then another month for contract, and then we can start funding. How long we need, that depends on the size of the project. There was a project we funded in 1 day, and others we do 12 months. It's also depending on the project itself. So next slide, let's see if I still can say something about it. Okay, just to say, we funded so far since 2013 over 100 projects. They nearly all contributed to the 17 SDGs. We have invested 15.8 million euros, save over 500,000 tons of CO2 every year, and have a large crowd with more than 10,000 users. And every project we put online, we have funded. Yeah, and I think I'll stop here and just say that we would be happy to support companies with their funding in Africa. That's it.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Very interesting. Also very interesting to see the different approaches that one can take to finance their project or combine. Now, the last input presentation will be from Sebastian Wolf, Head of Finance Advisory at GET.invest, which is not a financing facility, but more of an advisory facility. But we will hear more about this from Sebastian. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome also to everyone from my side. Thanks, Mate, for the introduction, and also to the speakers so far. It's actually my pleasure to be here with this panel. A lot of experienced and knowledgeable speakers. GET.invest fits nicely here in line because it sees itself as instrumental in making finance happen. Yeah, so we've heard about the big picture of the European Commission and also learned about the different and highly specific investment vehicles here, like ElectriFI and Bettervest. The question which always sort of remains, at least in our view, is how these instruments can be brought closer to the markets and to the investees, to the projects and businesses, or basically how can these be made fit for finance? Yeah. This is what we're working on, and this is what GET.invest is doing, supporting investments by the private sector in decentralized renewable energy in our partner countries. We are a European program implemented by GIZ and hosted on the multi-donor platform GetPro. It's important to note that this event and also our work would not have been possible without the support of our donors, obviously. This is mainly the European Commission, but also Austria Germany, the Netherlands, and Sweden. First slide, yes, thanks. Basically, at GET.invest, we have 3 major areas of activity right now. Starting sort of on the slide from the bottom, we do capacity development. We provide trainings mainly to the regulators. So we do have activities on the regulatory side to make projects and finance happen. Secondly, we support private sector. We do private sector mobilization. We provide knowledge and information to support market access for the private sector. I think this is also quite relevant here for the audience because it's sort of an early stage of market building. And we bring together also the actors and support local associations, for example. So there's a matchmaking activity involved as well. And the third point here is, of course, last but not least, is actually our biggest advisory support. It's the Finance Catalyst, which is at the moment the heart of the GET.invest activities. So here we are supporting projects and businesses and link them to finance. And I will talk about that a bit more in one of the next slides. Next slide, please. Yeah. All our services are structured along the typical project or business development cycle. I think this clearly also reflects our focus on the private sector and the needs of the businesses and the project developers. Sort of starting from the left side, on the early sort of project potential identification phase, we provide information on countries, on markets, sort of very deep knowledge products. Once project ideas develop further or mature, we provide support on conferences and webinars, events and matchmaking, and also further sort of broader capacity development to the private sector, but also now to the financiers, specifically to the domestic financiers, which also play a role in these activities. And then sort of going further to the right on this slide, once projects sort of have developed further, partners are found locally, projects become more viable. This is on the Finance Catalyst is actually kicking in, which really provides targeted coaching and advisory to the projects, to get projects investment ready. And for this, we have more than 30 really experienced advisors, many of them actually based also in our target markets, and coming from different backgrounds, all having sort of a lot of experience themselves in project development and also in finance. Right now, this team is working with more than 100 clients. A lot of this is also possible remote, which actually made it possible to us to really almost sort of not have to slow down our activities during the ongoing pandemic situation, which is actually also makes us quite proud that we have sort of all the means, the technology in place, and to sort of continue the activities on the Finance Catalyst advisory. And then, of course, sort of on the right, once projects are ready, we are sort of working on the final aim of our activities, which is matching the projects to the financiers, obviously ElectriFI being one of our main to-go-tos, and also others. Yeah, so bringing projects to bankability. Next slide, please. Thanks. Yeah, the thematic, if you look at the thematic and geographic approach and scope, especially on what we finance, you will, if you have sort of watched closely, see that it's very similar to ElectriFI, which I think is no surprise for 2 reasons. Obviously, we have sort of one main donor, and but we're also sort of very closely aligned in many of the activities. This is also why ElectriFI is important financiers of our activities. So we are agnostic on the technology as long as it's renewable energy. A lot of experience on solar home systems, on-grid, off-grid IPPs, a lot of CNI now increasingly. So basically the whole set. What's interesting and also exciting for us is that a couple of new themes are coming up. We are watching them. We are not active yet, but it's developing. Just to name here, e-mobility, but also hydrogen storage. We're already active in interesting new topics coming up. Geography is Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and Pacifics. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I mentioned, the Finance Catalyst is our main service. which we have developed and also fine-tuned over the last years now. And in a nutshell, Finance Catalyst gets projects and business ready for finance and then links them to the financiers. Today, what we see in the market, Finance Catalyst support is really the benchmark and also spearheading of such TA support concepts in the market. The Finance Catalyst is really unique. It's in its structure by being fully on demand. This is what makes it very special, fully on demand, providing very flexible and tailored support to the individual companies and projects, and also being easy to access. So we don't have sort of monthly or whatever openings. It's just sort of, it's a one-click approach on the website and basically open 24 hours. Yeah, so it is easy to access. There's no timelines, and it's also reviewed by the team on a pretty fast basis. As you can see on the right side, that's the famous funnel. We have by now more than 60 projects already accepted by financiers. Actually, today's figure is closer to 70 now. So this is from June this year. So 60 projects accepted by financiers. More than 30 plus have already reached financial close. So if you put these two segments together alone, we will generate investments of around 1.4 billion euros. And as I said, there's more projects in the pipeline. Next slide. Yeah, obviously, besides the demand side, the project side, we also have a very close look at the supply side, the financiers. Highlight here to mention is the recently launched funding database on our website. You can find it on the website. There we have listed more than 100, it's almost 130 finance providers which are in the market. Also listing sort of their services and offers and details. And it's important to note here, because we get that question often, this is not just a database, this is really on a constantly rolling basis reviewed and also updated. Because the background here is we actually know all these actors, and we also know these financiers, and we stay in close contact, which really sort of is the outcome of also many years of activity. Yeah. So have a look at that, and I think at the moment this is probably the most up-to-date and relevant database in the market. And of course, you will also find ElectriFI Bettervest in there. I checked actually; it's they're all there. Next slide. Thanks. Yeah, their portfolio is broad and diverse. I'm not going into details here. It reflects sort of the very different demands and investment circumstances in our partner countries. Yeah. So if you look at the map here, Sub-Saharan Africa, you will, and those of you who know the regions will also see why certain markets are bigger. Some are more cumbersome to develop, but we also make no sort of we don't take shortcuts, meaning we are really open to applications to every country in these regions. Yeah. What's interesting is by having such a mix of regions and also business models and technologies and investment sizes and everything, we are increasingly now, with all this experience, able to compare between the markets, the technologies. We can learn from that. We can synergize that also within the portfolio. So we really increasingly are able to learn from different segments, from different markets across the countries. And we are actually at this point also very thankful that we have the unique opportunity to really work across these regions and on a very, very demand-driven basis by the sector. Next
1
slide.
minute left, Sebastian, please.
I thought so. That's why I only have sort of 3 short success stories for you, which I can, of course, keep very short. Actually, we have much more of these projects. We call them stories. We have much more of them on the website, so have a look. Here, I sort of picked 3 of them. First, Upova, because it shows different aspects. Upova in Cameroon, I think, is a good example where we supported more on the regulatory side. It's a very different environment. And also, we were happy to have ElectriFI here as an investor. And now actually looking on a second phase now, on a second equity round. That's a good example of the more support on the I would say regulatory side. Next slide, please. That's Simu Solar. Simu Solar. Sorry, it's a good example of sort of the typical support we do. It's off-grid power to fishers and farmers. It's also across 2 countries, Tanzania and Uganda. And here we did the typical sort of business support, finance structuring, these kind of activities, really sort of supporting, helping a local entrepreneur and business to really get to a financeable stage. Of course, also nice to see here that we have been able to do a sort of structured financing with Acumen and again ElectriFI providing finance. And then last slide, very briefly, I put that in here because just to show, this is in Guinea. It's 82 megawatt. We mobilized 66 million of investments here. It's a large project, one of our largest. But for such a country, actually quite relevant. And I put this in here to show also sort of the span of sizes and activities we are easily able to cover, and we have the experience and the knowledge in the team. That's it. Sorry for taking a bit too long, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. And on my side, I would just really highlight the fact that you've just relaunched the funding database, which I know that existed already several years ago, but has now been updated significantly. This is something that we've been waiting for very much. So I think that's a very useful tool. And the other thing that I also wanted to highlight and also to make a little advertisement around is the success stories. So that we know indeed that there are a lot of GET.invest related success stories, because first of all, we've developed together with GET.invest a podcast series on solar success in Africa. These podcast episodes are available on Spotify and on Apple Music. So I would like to encourage the participants to have a look and listen to these success stories. And we are actually currently working on a indeed, my colleague Lucas Clark-Memler just inserted the link in the chat. So we are currently developing a second season on additional success stories. And in our global market outlook for solar power, which was actually launched 2 days ago as part of the same conference, so the Smarter Industry Days, we launched our annual flagship publication, the Global Market Outlook, and so it also contains a number of case studies on success stories, on off-grid related success stories, actually, within a chapter dedicated to off-grid solar, which was also realized in cooperation with GET.invest. So that's a very fresh publication, can be downloaded from SolarPower Europe's website. But I will stop with the advertisements here, and I think we still have no problem. I think we still have half an hour for a panel discussion with our distinguished speakers. So first of all, thank you very much for your input presentations. And one of the topics that I would like to raise and introduce for this discussion is around the guarantee facilities, which Georges was speaking about in his presentation. So he told us about the existing / upcoming European Guarantee for Renewable Energy (AGRE) that will be implemented as part of the European Fund for Sustainable Development (EFSD+). And so we've been following this at SolarPower Europe as the solar industry, and I must say that we are very much looking forward to having such a non-sovereign guarantee, which will help to de-risk investments in emerging markets. And Marilyn, in your presentation, you mentioned that one of the major risks perceived by the investors, or one of the major factors that that prohibits investors from investing in crowdfunding projects, is also really linked to the riskiness, to the secureness of investment. So what are your thoughts about guarantees such as the AGRE? Do you think that it could be used to provide some securities to your crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, such products or such instruments already support crowdfunding platforms, but they are not enough. Yeah, so absolutely this would help. And as we have seen, I mean, the crowd investors, they go into a high risk. They have not such a know-how into financing. For them, it's quite new. They have they are scared, and finally they don't want such a high interest rate, but they want to have a security that the money comes back at the end. And such an instrument gives them the really good feeling that there's somebody there for them and sharing the risk. So for them, this is a good sign that the investment should be good. And so I'm quite sure that we could double or even triple the investment of crowd investors in Europe if such instruments would be available.
Thank you. I would like to further explore this topic with all the speakers. Actually, Sebastian, what is your take? Do you think guarantee facility would also help to well, scale up your work at the financing catalyst?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I keep it brief. I think obviously yes, it's very the activities are very welcome by us, but we also see it also as very complementary to what we do. Yeah, so I think. It's important to understand that there's two kinds of risks out in the market. It's actually the real risk, but there's also a lot of perceived risks, both by the developers, also by the financiers. So sort of this, we also refer this to as sort of there's a knowledge gap. So I think it actually fits very nicely because we can address risks which are out there and which really block some of the projects. Is just to name two here. The local currency risk is an issue, but also the off-taker risk, off-taker non-payment risk, so I would sort of the sovereign risk. Many other risks can also be structured with insurance and so on, like technical risks and risks like this. But I think it's sort of the both sides of the same coin. Having the guarantees available and having our finance catalyst support available to keep focusing on the sort of perceived risks and sort of bringing things together. I think something will be important for us also, where we go to work on and focus on, is really if there is these offers in the market, it will again and more require someone who helps sort of structuring this, finding the right tool, finding the right mechanism, how to bring guarantees together. I mean, because they also cost something, how to structure proper financing. And for this, of course, we see a very strong role for us, and we expect many projects to be actually possible to do with such a guarantee facility on top. Yeah.
Thank you, Sebastian. Jean-Denis, what would be your take on a prospective guarantee facility?
Yeah, we very much welcome this kind of initiatives. We have seen that that guarantees are very useful in terms of pooling resources of DFIs and others. We have seen it with ICCF and EFP, which are not EFSD guarantees, but with the EFSD Plus and products like EGRE, I very much agree with Mr. Van Wald that, for instance, if we can cover the off-taker risk, I think that will very much help the sector in some countries where projects are not bankable just because of this risk. And I'm thinking of few of them which really lag behind others in terms of development of green, renewable energy IPPs, and because the off-taker, the public utility, is not bankable. So I think there is a real need. On more generally on EFSD Plus, we are also actively working on what we call ElectriFI 2.0. So the next version of ElectriFI, where the idea is to have two separate components. One would be what we call the development facility, which is very much in line with what we do now and what ElectriFI is now. And then there would be a second component that would be covered by a guarantee from EFSD Plus, and that would help DFIs to mobilize and to deploy capital for projects and companies that we are investing in. So the idea is that we would use the first component to invest in more early stage project and companies, and when they would be more mature, DFIs would co-invest alongside us, but under a guarantee from EFSD+. So we are trying to develop schemes that are including these instruments.
Thank you. Before giving the word back to Georgios to react a little bit to what you said about the guarantee, maybe I want to pick you a little bit more about the European Guarantee for Renewable Energy and guarantees in general. So what would be your take on the question of sovereign guarantees versus non-sovereign guarantees? I think we saw in Georgios' presentation that for a certain project, for larger projects, it is foreseen to have not for a sovereign guarantee, but of course that is much more complicated usually than non-sovereign guarantees. Yeah, Jean-Denis, Sebastian, Marilyn, would you like to comment or do you have any thoughts on this problematic?
Sebastian?
No, I think, as I said, from our side, we see our role, and I also don't want to sort of to be too proactive in sort of commenting sort of the finance and the finance structuring side, because we are more sort of, I wouldn't say in the more comfortable role, but we are in the role that we say, okay, we are happy to sort of understand this and help bring this into the market, help structuring this and helping sort of making it happen. Yeah. And I think you mentioned this in the beginning, we are not providing finance. Yeah. So that's, I think also for the audience, important to mention again. So we're not providing finance, but what we do is we really understand as deep and as much as possible, and then we support and bring this to the markets. Yeah. So that's why, yeah, honestly, on certain aspects, I really follow sort of, I would say, our donors and also sort of the financial sector, so how they're developing this, and then we are fit and ready to support and bring into the markets.
So if I may add something here, I mean, what we have just seen, we exist since 2013, is that we see that there are good instruments for larger financial institutions, especially then when the projects are 2 million or above. But what we see, especially in the developing countries, there are smaller companies that need funding. And these get the funding from us, from Bettervest, or for crowdfunding platforms, so smaller projects, 100,000 and so on. And for those projects, we had no guarantee or risk mitigation bonds. I can remember there was a time when there was an instrument from CEDA. That was in 2016. And we applied at that time. And because of our German regulation, we could not join, because we were limited through our German regulation. And then we found now a structure that would enable us to do it. But since that time, there was no other instrument that we could apply for. And it's just now one instrument where we started discussion with, and in August, September, we will release it. Yeah. But to be very honest, we as crowdfunding platforms, we feel quite alone. Yeah. And there are investors in Europe, private people, and they also want to support the development in Africa, but also they need some help from such risk mitigation bonds.
Thank you. So turning back to Georgios, is it foreseen that EGRE or other guarantee facilities would cover smaller scale projects rather than IPPs, smaller than IPPs or utility scale projects? Yeah.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers for their excellent suggestions, and also for appreciating the instrument of guarantees. And this is why this instrument did not exist, and we are starting slowly, with the help of financiers, starting to put this into place. I want to stress that here we're relying on the experience of financing institutions, because you understand that this is highly specialized areas, and that there is not somewhere where the Commission can decide without the knowledge and the know-how and the how to do things of the market, of the financial market and capitals. So we have to go before that. I mean, of course, there are things moving ahead, and this is one of them is crowdfunding. I don't know. Marilyn can inform us of when crowdfunding started, but I think it's not too long ago. So we have to start adapting to this as well, and this is for sure. I would like to nuance a bit on one or two, not avoiding your questions, but trying to put some more different ways of looking at them. Saying, for example, that that guarantees is only one instrument. It's not a panacea. It's just we cannot replace normal funding with guarantees. So it has to go on together, and it's not. And also, it's actually an instrument that has to be used with care and diligence. So this is why, for example, when from our side we're negotiating the guarantees with the financing institutions, we ask the financing institutions to put what we call skin in the game, but to be, to not to have, let's say, the commission bearing the full loss, because there we have issues. We all want to be in this together. But for us, what makes most, I mean, if you want a question, why do we have guarantees in the first place? There's many reasons, but one of them that was not mentioned is because there is a lot of what we call, especially in Africa, of perceived risk. And I think GIZ has done also the work of analyzing those risks that are in the technologies, analyzing the risks in the off-taker, but also the risks that are perceived risks that are actually not there. Most of the time, those of us working in Africa know that they are highly exaggerated in many cases. I will give you an example that, would you like to have an IPP in a country that is, the governance is quite low, very bad, you see an indicator, but at the same time you have a kilowatt hour price of 45 cents. I mean, there is an opportunity there, despite the governance issue that you have to go and solve. I mean, so there are other issues that have to be seen together. I think we need to go directly. I think we need to move towards smaller projects, but these have to be grouped, and it's the financiers that will answer, because there will be a call to the financiers, a call for proposals for EFSD Plus that will ask the financiers to have, let's say, good ideas about how to use the guarantees. And I think, I can see very well that, the smaller projects in groups, of course, in categories should be included in these ideas, but this really depends on the financiers that will submit the proposals. I also wanted to mention one thing, but it's maybe we go to the next round, and I'll try to. There are some other ideas, but I think we can include them in the next round. So, Mate, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Georgios. Very much appreciate the elements that you mentioned, and in particular the fact that you are inviting the stakeholders to send you their suggestions for the guarantee facilities. May I ask you to mute yourself, because I can hear an echo. Sorry for that. So just to reassure you, Georgios, that we are at SolarPower Europe actually working on an input paper on the EFSD Plus EGRE, which you will receive very soon, you and your colleague, and I'm happy to to take it then bilaterally to discuss the specific recommendations. Now, we still have 15 minutes left. I would like to use this 15 minutes to explore another topic, more of a systemic questions. We see that some project developers in emerging markets still have difficulties to access finance, despite the fact that all the efforts of the European Union, the different institutions and development finance institutions and banks. What do you think is the reason for this? Isn't there enough money out there? Or is it because there is a mismatch between what developers are looking for and basically the supply, what is out there? Or is the reason more linked to policy issues and bankability issues? So the fact that there is money, but no one wants to lend money for some regions or jurisdictions. So what's your take on this, and what are your organizations doing to address these challenges? I would like to hand the word first to Jean-Denis.
Yeah, thank you, Mate. No, it's a very good question. Our take is that there is funding available. There are many funds, crowdfunding platforms. There are the DFIs. In some countries, there might be some commercial banks, but yeah, to a limited extent. But what we see is that most of the funding available is on the debt side, senior debt side. And so our perception is that there is a lack of equity available, especially on the development side. And one of the consequences of it, and because there is so much debt available versus equity, is that there is a tendency for companies to be over leveraged, and especially on the distributed energy side. Most of the companies and or projects are at quite still at an early stage of development, or they are scaling up, but with still a very limited cash flow generation capacity, and which make them it's very difficult for them to service the debt with limited cash flows. But again, with this surabundance of debt, there is this tendency for them to take on too much debt compared to what they should. And I think there should be more equity available in the market. So that's also why at ElectriFI, because of our additionality mandate, we are doing more and more equity, because there is such a need, and there is a need to recapitalize those distributed energy companies. But we can't do it alone. So I think this is our perception of the market.
Thank you, Jean-Denis. Marilyn, what's your take on this? I mean, Bettervest mostly operates with debt, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, what Jean-Denis says is really true. We also see that these companies that also we want to support, or that we support in the past, have really too much debt on their shoulders. The problematic is also, I mean, we have financed the first projects in Nigeria, mini-grid projects, and what we just realized, and we knew it from the beginning on, is that the mini-grid sector is so difficult and so unforeseeable, so that the income was much, much lower even though than we expected, and we put already lots of buffer, and there was already a 50% grant inside. So these companies, they are really in a pioneer sector. They really have to step into a market that is a very difficult market, and it's very difficult sometimes for them really to make enough money and to pay back the debt. On the other hand, I'm not so happy about too many grants, because what I also see on the other hand is that some companies, it seems that they are just looking for the grants, and that they're not so deep thinking about their business. Is it really economical? How can I really structure it to make it professional and make it efficient? But it's more focused on how can I win the grant. So if I would have to give an answer, I think I would be happy if we could structure everything like this, that they could get cheaper debt, but not too many grants, even though grants are very important. But perhaps the debt should still be cheaper, because for them it's really a big mass on their shoulders, because the projects are also difficult.
Thank you, Marilyn. Sebastian, I think you must have quite a good overview of the financing landscape in Africa and other parts of the world, because that's your daily bread and butter. What's your take and analysis of this problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious, also very often said. I mean, funding. There is a lot of funding available, sort of overall. I mean, just look at the international markets. I mean, money is awash in the markets. The question is it going to where we need it, and are the projects ready to fulfill the requirements? And of course, this is the huge gap which we see. Several reasons for this. I mean, I'm not going to talk again about sort of the capacity, the knowledge, capacity building, which is needed for the developers and the companies, the project. I think that's clear. This is what we're working on a lot. Which I still sort of see is, or I'm wondering is, what is the role of the local financial sector? I continue to be surprised by the sort of non-activity or sort of non-interest of most of the local financial sectors. And it is mainly reasons is that they have other investment opportunities. If you can go into local government bonds with very low risk and so on, so why invest in a project which you don't understand? So I think it's a broader question. Sort of how can the local financial sector be more utilized. And I think here also the guarantee structuring will be very interesting, because you need the local intermediaries and also you need the local financial sector for these guarantees. So that's something, coming back to sort of the question, okay, yes, there is money, but it needs to be properly structured. And I think there is a role to play for the local financial sector, because it also includes the whole local currency issue, which we have not really touched here, which would be a complete separate discussion. I also like the equity point and the sort of too much debt in the market and the equity. And I think what I like about equity, as I know it from my sort of previous financial sector experiences, if you put in equity, you also put in knowledge and you put in support. And I think this is what should happen. Now, we don't need patient equity in the market. What we need is active equity. And we as GET.invest are now supporting some of these companies, or we're going to support some of these companies which are going into the market with equity. And we support them by bringing along with the equity, the knowledge, the support, interim CFOs, whatever is needed to bring the companies forward. So that's another point which I see. I'm just sort of trying to re-across my points which are important before the time is over. And the last point I wanted to sort of refer also to the pooling and the grouping, and I was very sort of happy to hear that George was also that this is really in sort of a topic which will be addressed by the ICRI, because I think yes, that's something which we can definitely do more, because it makes sense in a lot of cases. Because the money is there, and if the projects are big enough, if there's enough pooling, and we've supported this on mini grids, but also on others, then it becomes big enough for the financial sector, the international DFIs, but also the local, to make the effort. And this is the whole point. If it's too small and complicated, no one financial sector really makes the effort. And I think there also we can see a difference happening.
Thank you, Sebastian. So it seems that there is enough money out there. It's just the way we use that money. Georges, what is your take on this? And I think that we can also consider these the closing remarks.
Yes, of course. Thank you. I think the issues raised are quite, broad. One of them also was about mini grids, which is it's an issue by itself, and the risk that is there. I just want to mention two things from really purely from the EU side, and what we do with our delegations is that we see that there is a role for financing institutions that provide loans, as mentioned by Sebastian, a role for entrepreneurs that want to put their equity, recycle it, go fast. We really want to see that, but we cannot. We're trying to help all of those partners, but we also see a role for the public. We see a role also for making the public move things, and this is where we think that the EU, with its network of delegations, with its very long-standing experience, not only in energy but in other issues, and its access to ministries and the policy, that we can do something that will transform the market. And this is what we are seeing. For example, organizing auctions. I know the auctions is not everybody's agreeing with auctions, because sometimes the prices are too low, but it's still a structured process. A process that has fully the government on board, that is creating a pipeline, maybe even a series of pipelines. And we see that, if we really want to have results, maybe this is the way to go. And then the allocation of risk is very important. For example, in mini grids, which is, if you want, there is a view emerging that, why should an investor invest in assets that remain there and might also be seized or, let's say, taken over by utilities. So they really, everyone should concentrate where he can have a result and for things he can control, and not the things that he cannot control. So we're really thinking about, for example, that in assets, when it becomes assets, there should be a big fund that should cover those assets and make it a different asset class. And we have very good ideas about this. And this can even lower the cost of a mini grid by 30–40%. So there are ideas like that. And we will explore them at many levels. I mentioned the action through the public sector, the action that is ongoing through GET.invest. Very important, really important, and even becoming even better. Real funding at the equity level more and more by ElectriFI. All this will be there, but we see a need of this for this orchestration and this really coordination of things, really wanting to move forward, be it in large-scale IPPs or even in mini grids. And this is also reflected in the text that we have on the Africa Europe Green Energy Initiative, that this is the way to go. Auctions, I think also that the well-known Renewable Africa initiative is also proposing that some auctions happen. And the auctions also should have some kind of element of environmental, social standards and also technical standards that I think are very important. So we need to see good companies moving forward, and because at this big picture also the level of reaching SDG 7, sometimes the alarm has sounded quite a few times. So it is through this concerted action and all these ideas I think we can move forward. And I'm handing over to you. Thank you, Mate.
Thank you very much, Georgios. I think these were really good closing remarks for this session. We've reached the end of our time. It's very good to hear that the European Commission is moving forward with a very comprehensive approach to accompany investors and project developers, also considering the recommendations of Renew Africa. And it's really good to be in touch with you, Georgios, your colleagues, and also colleagues from other services, and have this openness from your side to discuss with the industry. But with this, I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you, Georgios, Marilyn, Jean-Denis, Sebastian. It was a very good discussion. Thank you for the presentations and the panel discussion. Thanks to GET.invest for supporting this session. Also thanks to the Smarter E for making the conference available for this topic. And with this, I think this was also the last session of the Smarter E Industry Days. Thank you to the audience, and goodbye. Have a nice rest of the day and a good weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you so much, Mate.
Thank you.
Mate.
Bye.
Good weekend. Bye-bye.